Well, all right, y'all. All across the USC, Compton, Watts, Bay to LA, Pomona, California, from valley to valley, we represent that killer Cali. So if you keeping it real on your side of your town, you tune in to Gangsta Chronicles.
Gangsta Chronicles, we gon' tell you how it goes.
If I lie, my nose will grow like Pinocchio. We gon' tell you the truth and nothing but the truth.
Gangsta Chronicles, this is not your average show.
You're now tuned into the real MC8, Big James, and Big Steel.
This is strictly from the streets.
Hello.
We represent the James.
You came into business during the Motown era, and you were A&R for Motown, right? So we gonna go back to the past now a little bit. You had some situations to where you saved a well-known singer's life.
Yes.
Are we allowed to go into that?
Yes. What happened was that I was coming from a studio recording session, and I was coming down a street in Los Angeles. It was called Beverly Boulevard. There was a recording studio over there called Lion's Share at that time, and it was a very popular place for recording artists. Well, I'm coming from a meeting, and it was a little past 12 midnight, and in the middle of the road, I see this man laying out, and he's waving his arm. So, being paranoid like I always am, I thought it was a setup. So I stopped and I looked and I said, man, let me go help this man. And when I got closer, I saw blood spurting out of different locations on his body. And I was actually dodging blood spurts. And when I got to him, I saw it was Melvin Franklin with the Temptations, a bass singer. And he had been shot multiple times. He had been robbed coming out the studio, and the guy shot him twice. And then the third time he shot him, the only reason he let him live is because Melvin yelled out, "I'm Melvin Franklin from the Temptations, please don't kill me." Well, the guy relented, got in Melvin's car, drove off around the corner. There was very little gas in the car. And he pulled up to the gas tank, filled the gas tank up, and killed the attendant and drove off.
This wasn't in the movie.
Pardon me?
This wasn't in the movie.
No, there was something it was something nobody wanted to go into. It was very violent. And what happened at that point, I took off. I was 26 at the time. I was just out the military, and I knew how to stop bleeding. So I took off my shoes and tied my socks around the wounds to stop the flow of the blood. And I loaded him into my car, and I took him to the hospital. And they said if he didn't get there 10 minutes early, he would have bled to death. Now here's the clincher to this. 1.5 years later, I was hired by Motown Records to produce the Temptations. I walk into the studio. I hadn't seen Melvin since he was shot, and Motown filmed it. And he turned around and he saw me, says, "Wait a minute, you're the person to save my life, and now you're producing a record." And the record I produced on them was called Special. And it turned out to be their album title. And it turned out to be a massive hit single for them. So I'm very proud about that.
Man, you're a little, hey Stan, you're a little Smokey Robinson, huh?
Well, you know what? I had a great career, James. I had a great career at Motown. I produced 6 top 10 records and 1 #1 record. I produced the Temptations. I produced Anita Pointer and Pointer Sisters. I produced Gerald Alston, who was the lead singer of Manhattans, Kiss and Say Goodbye and Shining Star. I did all those. And I worked in the A&R music production for many years. And a side note, I had a R&B group called By All Means. And I signed them. It was my first deal ever. It was in 1987, and I signed them to Island Records. And we did a remake of the Marvin Gaye song called Let's Get It On. It went to number 3 in the country, and it solidified my career, and that's when I went to Motown. Mr. Gordy and Gerald Busby offered me a beautiful deal to come there, and I stayed at Motown for 5 years until I joined Jermaine Jackson, because the Jackson family asked me to come on and work with them. And I did that for 2 years. After that, I was introduced to a young man named Harry O and DJ Battlecat.
Now, how you feel about Harry O being home?
I communicated with Harry O last night via text. I'm not bothering him because he's adjusting to everything in his life. And I have talked to, I call him Michael. I have talked to Michael every year for 27 years. I'm very emotional when I talk about that man. Okay.
Right.
So, I mean, he's my partner, man. So he started with me with Battlecat. Understand something. When I tell you this, we've never met in person. Me and Harry O. It's all been since he's been incarcerated. He trusts me. I trust him. And that's where we are today. It's a bond. And anything he asks of me is going to be done to the best of my ability. It's as simple as that. I love that man.
They don't find too many people in this world that you can call a friend. Since I've known you, that's how I've been feeling since day one. When I met you over there at the house in Beverly Hills. Just good people, Stan.
Thank you, James.
You good
Thank
people.
you. I really appreciate that. I'm misunderstood. Just because I work with gang members and just because I work with people from the streets, don't tell me I can't come into your offices. Don't tell me you don't want to call me back because man, if something go wrong. Let me tell you something, all of you. And that is the most evil, backstabbing people in business work at the major labels. And if you don't check them, they'll check you. I am not a person that turns the other cheek. You slap me, I'm gonna try to slap you back. James, let me tell you something, all of you guys. I come from 79th Street on the south side of Chicago. Gang banging up until I was 26. I had 22 fights and lost all 22. I became a virtual psychotic person, and anytime you even looked like you were going to threaten me, it brought back memories. And I'm quite sure if anybody has been gang banging for any amount of time, if anybody looks like they're going to do something, if you've been harmed before, it's a defensive mechanism.
Right.
And that's what it is for me. And sometimes, even at my old age right now, I still never left 79th Street. It's still in my soul, because whatever you experience growing up, it stays with you. I was one of the first, and I want you to hear this. I was one of 4 of the first gangster disciples on 79th Street. And my history is there. Was I tough? No. I was a scared 15-year-old that wanted to be accepted. And I was beaten up daily. And I got tired of getting beaten up. So I said, let me join the GDs to get some protection. It wasn't because I was a maniac, wanted to do some wrong. No, I was scared. And if anybody's been beaten up real bad, you don't want to see that again. You don't want to experience that again. And it made me a different type of person, getting my butt whipped 22 times and never winning. So when I came to Compton and I started working with Suga, I started working with everybody involved with my label, with SheppardLane. Man, by the time people got to me, I was looking at them with horns in their head. I said, if anybody came towards me with anything, they got trouble because I'm panic stricken. I've seen too much death in Compton. 18 of my friends dead.
Hey, Stan.
So Stan, how would you say, you know, the transition of coming from the time when you first started in business, and you said, we've all seen our scales of violence, or perhaps, but, you know, venture into the rap game and coming to Compton, would you say that was a whole different story altogether?
Let me say this. I've been to the Marshall Projects in New York. I've been on 79th Street. I drive past Old Block every day here in Chicago. I've dealt with every aspect. So we got a situation where I can look back and I can see how vicious it became. Compton is totally different from Watts. Compton is totally different from South Central. And Compton doesn't usually like to associate with outsiders. It just doesn't happen. And I know if there's 27 hoods from Fruitown all the way down, I know these guys. I know the South Side people. And it's totally different. Compton is more meticulous. If Compton wants to hit you, there's already been a plan laid out. It ain't random. These people know.
100.
They know what they're doing. I saved another man's life from New York. You know what his name is? He's never heard what I'm getting ready to say. And it's going to shock him.
And let me set this up a little bit for you.
Go ahead.
A well-known producer for Public Enemy, for the group Public Enemy.
Yes.
Am I correct?
Yes, you are. His name is Hank Shockley. Let me tell you what happened, and I'll bullet point you. There was a young group from Watts, young man from Watts that I was representing, named Filthy Frank. I had a deal at the time for Filthy Frank with a record company who was run by a man by the name of Al Bell. He used to have this big hit record called Whoop, There It Is. Okay, it was called Bellmark Records. Well, he wanted to get into the rap game. And I took him to Filthy Frank Project. Oh, I love it, Stan. Here's a $175,000 deal. At that time, that's a lot of money for an unproven artist. So he says, I'll prepare the paperwork. I called my artist, said, this is what we got. He said, oh man, that's great. So then the following day, I have a meeting at MCA with the head of A&R. Her name was Madeline. And at that time, Madeline's boss was Hank Shockley. Okay. Well, Madeline heard she said, Stan, what are you working on? And I said, I'm working on this project from an act out of Watts. Can I hear it? I said, yeah, you can hear it. I played it for her. She went crazy. She said, Stan, what deal have you signed? I said, I haven't signed anything yet. I said, I have an offer, but I haven't signed the deal. She says, I'll beat it by 100,000, whatever you got. I said, you give me 275? Because that's what I got. I got 175. She said, yes. I said, okay. I called my artist. Let's roll. He went from 175 to 275 in 24 hours. So everybody's happy, right? Okay. So now fast forward. She says she's going to get the paperwork together for me. 2 weeks passes. 3 weeks passes. No paperwork. I called up. I said, what's going on? Where's the paperwork? I don't know. I don't know what's happening. I'm checking with my boss in New York, and I'm not getting a response on this. I said, whoa. Now remember, this is 1996, 97.
Okay.
This is at the height of the East Coast, West Coast drama. Okay. Well, at that time, DJ Quick, who I was managing, did a drop. And the drop for Power 106 radio station said, quote, "I am no longer a supporter of East Coast rap." That was the drop. Well, New York heard of that. The executives in New York said, "Do not deal with Stan. He represents gangs on the West Coast and DJ Quick, Mausberg, Sugar Free. He's too involved with this." So they never called me back. After 2 months, I had to tell the artist, guess what? Your 275 went down the drain. All right. Fast forward. We're having I don't know if you guys remember this place. It was on Norm Nixon's place with his wife. It was called George's. And it was in Hollywood. Well, at that particular night that we went, there was 9 of us. And I had 4 Samoan bodyguards. None of them were under, I think, 350 pounds. And as we went into this restaurant for this joyous occasion, Hank Shockley walks in. I said, "Oh, this is great. I get to talk to him in person because I haven't caught him in 2 months to talk about what happened with the deal." Well, he was with 2 people. And I walked up to him at the bar and I said, "Oh, Hank, man, I'm so glad to see you." And as soon as I started to talk to him, he had 2 young men with him who came in front of him and pointed at me and said, "Get away. We don't want to talk to you about this SHIT tonight." Well, unfortunately, they didn't know that all of our people were there, and they saw him point and get aggressive. Lo and behold, now I have 8 people coming to do damage to these 3 people from New York. I asked them to stop, and I escorted Hank Shockley and his 2 men to their car, and I got them out of there. What I didn't know was that they were followed when they left, and I get a call about 30 minutes later, and they said, "Stan, we got the homie pulling in to the hotel. We can get him for you right now, and we'll get the other 2. I panicked. I said, "Please," I begged. And James knows the hitters that I was with, and James knows these are people that do not play. They were from Fruittown, they were from Looters, and the Crips organization, I think it's called Cross Atlantic or Atlantic Drive or something.
Atlantic Drive. Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, these were the people, these were huge men, and I begged them to let him go, and they did. And I'm going to tell Hank Shockley right here, right now, a direct statement to you. You're a very lucky man. You're a very lucky man, and that's all I'll say. And I said that to say, treat everyone in this music business with respect. You don't know who they're connected to. You don't know what favors are owed. So stop thinking you're tough. The most untough people can have you clipped immediately.